Bueno, sí. Camina.
All right, so what constitutes being that guy? We've all met one before, and there's just something about them that makes you think, God, he's just so fucking sexy. It's like they've got this drive and this energy where you just can't help but be pulled along in their wake. Every time you see them, they've accomplished something else, and it makes you wonder why you aren't doing the same. The fact that they're always improving, always getting better, it imbues in you this desire to keep up. It's contagious. And it's not just you, because everybody feels this way. That's why it always seems like everybody knows them. They're charismatic. They just feel good to be around because even though you know they're hot shit, they don't act like it. They're always lifting the people around them up instead of bringing them down. That guy is genuinely just someone great to have in your life. We'll start with health. If you've ever been on a plane, you know that you have to fit your own oxygen mask on before helping anyone else with theirs, and it's the same thing here. Your health is the foundation upon which everything else is built, so if you don't make sure it's solid, you're just going to be setting yourself back. You're not going to be able to do anything or be anything for anyone if you don't make sure that you have your physical and mental health in order first. Now, the easiest place to start is exercise, specifically cardiovascular exercise. We'll get to gymming later, but that's not the focus right now. We've all been told some general rules of thumb about how much exercise we should get per week. In the second edition of Physical Activity Guidelines for Americans, released in 2018, the suggested amount of exercise for adults is anywhere from 2.5 to 5 hours a week of moderate exercise, 1 hour and 15 to 2.5 hours of vigorous exercise, or some combination of both. But the issue here is that you're still leaving a lot on the table when it comes to actually getting the maximum health benefits. A study conducted at Harvard soon after the release of those guidelines actually found that, to get the maximum health benefit from your exercise, you'd instead want to get 5 to 10 hours a week of moderate exercise, 2.5 to 5 hours a week of vigorous exercise, or some equivalent combination of both. These work out to a couple easy rules like 1 hour of moderate exercise every day or 3 1-hour sessions of intense exercise per week. So the upper bounds you get from the recommended activity guidelines should actually be your lower bound. But how do you get that much exercise? In my experience, there's one answer. You have to do something that you actually like, and bonus points if it's something that you can do with other people too. I'm short on time, so I try and put all my focus into hitting that upper limit for the vigorous exercise. Each week I hold myself to a minimum of 3 2-hour-long sessions of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. At the end of every class, I'm visibly soaked in sweat, and you can actually see the steam coming off of my body as if I was some sort of titan, and it feels great. The thing with this kind of exercise is that you don't notice it at first. You don't get a pump like you do in the gym, but over a long period of time, your body will transform. You stop feeling tired all the time, and the little things that you do on a day-to-day basis just become easier. Joining some kind of class or sport is also great because you're going to end up meeting people, making friends, and they're going to hold you accountable. After that, you're going to want to make sure that you're getting some deep, solid sleep every single night. I've had plenty of nights where I just stay up and get almost no sleep, even if I'm doing something productive, and the next day is just trashed. Every little thing is so much harder than usual. Now, I'm not a sleep scientist, but this guy is. This is Andrew Huberman, and he's an associate professor of neurobiology at Stanford, and he is the sleep expert on YouTube. He talks about all sorts of stuff as a neurobiologist, but the first couple videos on his YouTube channel are hour-long lectures dedicated to mastering your sleep. I definitely recommend giving them a watch. But I've taken some notes here, and so I'm just going to rapid fire really quickly go through all of the main points and steps you can take to start fixing your sleep. First, at the start of the day, you want to actually get some sunlight in your eyes as close to waking as possible. This gets your cortisol spiked to wake you up and your circadian rhythm going. After that, getting some exercise or eating some food early in the morning will also help to correctly set your circadian rhythm. Also, the longer you're awake, the more sensitive your retinas are to light. So, try and get very little light after 8 p.m. and no light between 11 p.m. and 4 a.m. If you can, watch the sunset. It'll protect against the negative effects of viewing light later on in the night, closer to bedtime. Also, find a way to either open your windows or turn your lights on a bit before you wake up so that your brain can start sending those wake-up signals. Also, don't get neurotically attached to perfecting your sleep, because it'll just cause anxiety and make it even harder for you to fall asleep. All you have to do is try and be as consistent as possible. Try and get some exercise either 30 minutes after waking, 3 hours after waking, or 11 hours after waking. Finally, on cold showers, there's 2 things. So, cold showers in the morning will shift you forward in your circadian rhythm, so you'll actually fall asleep earlier that night. Cold showers in the evening will have the opposite effect and shift you later in your circadian rhythm, so you'll sleep later that night. So that was a lot of information, but in my opinion, by far the most important things that you need to keep in mind are light and consistency. Light is good in the morning, avoid it as much as you can before bed. Try and wake up at the same time every day, regardless of when you went to sleep, but then also try and go to sleep at around the same time every night. Make sure you get enough sleep and just don't sweat the small stuff too much. The final main thing that you want to think about when it comes to your physical health is your nutrition. Look, I'm not going to open up the can of worms that is nutritional science and advice. Nutritional science is already just one of the least reliable types of science out there, but I do have some general rules of thumb that I can give. So the first point, you know yourself and you know your body. Eat good food and don't eat garbage. Eat things that make you feel good and don't eat things that make you feel bad. It's as simple as that. Also, foods aren't inherently good or bad, healthy or unhealthy. Some people in my jiu-jitsu gym often eat some candy before they start sparring so that they can have those simple carbs from the sugar ready to go. On the other hand, I know a guy who became pre-diabetic from all the fruit he was compulsively eating in his obsession to eat clean. Everything is situational. Just make sure that you know what works for you and what it is that you need. After that, it's just generally good practice to eat a bunch of different foods whenever possible. Eating a larger variety of foods is more likely to help you meet all your nutritional needs than eating the same exact thing every day. Finally, drink more water. It's insane how dehydrated most people are on a daily basis. Figure out how much water you need at your body weight and activity level, and make sure you drink that every day. You don't really realize how bad it feels to be constantly dehydrated until you get out of it. Now we can move on to mental health. This isn't something that a lot of people like to talk about, and I feel like that's especially true with men. There's almost like this stigma against admitting when you're dealing with some shit, and a lot of pressure to just kind of toughen up and ignore it, especially because it feels like nobody really cares. But this usually only leads to you crashing and burning later on at an even worse time. Combine that with the fact that a lot of guys just don't feel that comfortable being emotionally intimate with most of their friends, and it's just really difficult to get better. But there is another side though, the side where you admit to yourself what you're dealing with, where you work to take care of yourself and get better. The side where you can be there for the people around you so that you can be the person for them that you wish you could have had. Here's how you do it. The easiest place to start is with concrete actions. I really recommend that you start meditating and practicing mindfulness. I know that people talk about this all the time to the point where mindfulness has almost become this sort of corporate buzzword, but I really can't overstate how important it is for your mental health that you start building this habit. And here are the 2 main steps you can take. First, just start meditating. The details don't matter. It can be for 1 minute or 30. It can be sitting, laying down, standing, walking, whatever you want. The important thing is that you just make it a habit. Stop trying to optimize. This will help a ton because as you work to accept your thoughts and feelings through meditation, you'll realize that you don't really have control over them. You'll realize that you're not your thoughts and feelings. Instead, you'll start to see yourself as the observer. You'll see your thoughts and your feelings come and go, and they won't hold anywhere near as much power over you as they previously did. The next thing you can do is try to focus on finding times throughout your day where you can intentionally embrace the quiet and the boredom, rather than flooding your senses with overstimulation. Over time, this is just going to help you to start listening to yourself again, and you'll be surprised with the kind of stuff you can come up with. If you've ever heard of like shower thoughts, this is how that happens. You've got to give yourself time throughout the day to actually listen to yourself, to focus on your internal world rather than always being driven by what's outside. Along with that, you need to have a journal. That's non-negotiable. I say this because I've been journaling every single day since June 17th of 2021. That's when I was in one of my lowest, absolute worst times in my life, and it genuinely changed everything. At the time, I was in a really emotionally manipulative relationship. I had quit my job and given up on all my ambitions. I was going on $20,000 in debt, and I was the loneliest I had ever been, having abandoned my family and ruined all my friendships. If I were to credit anything from taking me from that point to where I am right now, it would be my habit of daily journaling. The way it just gets you to really reflect on your thoughts and your actions and forces you to confront the things going on in your life and improve on a day-by-day basis. You have to start journaling. Again, the details here don't matter. What's important is that you give yourself a space where you can write down everything that's in your head. This will help you to make better decisions and to better understand the patterns in your actions and emotions over a long period of time. Listen, every time I forget how much journaling has helped me and get careless with the habit, I end up stuck in a rut for days, weeks, sometimes even months. And on the flip side, every time I get serious about it again, I dig myself out and end up having some of the best, most productive weeks of my life. Now here's where we get to the fun stuff. To be that guy, you have to cultivate the right mindset through action. You need to fill yourself with drive and be brimming from the energy that comes from chasing and making progress on your goals. So the first thing that you need to cultivate is competence. I know it sounds nebulous, but let's make it a little more concrete. What of value do you have to offer the world? What are you good at? If you don't have any answers to those questions, that should bother you. The very thing that's allowed human civilization to come as far as it has is the fact that, with the invention of agriculture, people were able to begin specializing. Instead of everyone needing to just be good enough at the skills necessary for survival, each person was able to focus on a specific skill and carve out a niche for themselves. The specialization of labor meant that people could become potters, weavers, metalworkers, warriors, and physicians. As society became more complicated, it necessitated the creation of more advanced specializations with more advanced skills. And here you are, resting on the back of 10,000 years of human civilization, only to live your life aimlessly with incompetence? No, you have to be good at something. And if you aren't, then you need to devote yourself to working towards getting good at something. It could be a career, a hobby, a sport, anything that's skill-based. Ideally, it could also be something that could make you some money, but it doesn't have to be. The important thing here is that you give yourself a direction for your life, a trajectory to follow. Because then you give yourself a metric within which you can measure yourself and genuinely see your growth over time. Regardless of whatever else might be going on in your life, if you're working towards becoming competent and skilled, then you always have that foundation to fall back on. And that's where the confidence comes in. It doesn't matter if you just got out of a breakup, if you just had an embarrassing interaction at a party, or if you messed up and missed out on a good opportunity. You'll be confident as a person because you'll have at least one area in your life that you can confidently and measurably see your growth in. And you'll know that you're becoming a person who can provide value to the world and to the people around you. Following directly from competence, you also need to cultivate competitiveness. Ideally in the same skill as before, but also just as a general attitude. Competition is great because it'll force you to just come to terms with reality in a way that not much else does. When you compete against another person, another human being who, just like you, has been working their hardest for this moment, and you win, the confidence boost is insane. That win is real. It doesn't matter if you don't think you're good enough because you just proved it to yourself, objectively. At the same time, when you compete against another person and you lose, you gain humility. You see the skill gap between you and someone else, and that should excite you, because you see exactly where and how you can improve so that next time you do even better. The combination of winning and losing through the constant testing of your skills will ground you in the knowledge of where you stand. And when so many people in the world are on either extreme, either thinking that they're better than they are or worse than they are because they've never had the security in themselves to put it to the test, that's a powerful feeling. Competition will honestly also just fill you with this fire that's unlike anything else, and that's the main thing we want from this. If you've ever competed in anything before, you know that if you have some kind of competitive endeavor coming up, that anything you do, you will do with this sort of laser focus. If you win, you get to taste the fruit of your labor. You'll get all this positive feedback and reinforcement that's just going to make you excited to go back and grind even more. And if you lose, then that's just adding fuel to the fire, because you know that next time you have to do better. It's addicting. Also, I just kind of like that vibe of being the person who's so in love with the competition that you want to help everyone around you grow so that you can just have an even harder challenge to rise up to. It's almost like this cooperative competitiveness. The more you help the people around you grow, the more people you have around you who are better than you, which then makes it so that you have an even higher bar to rise up to, which then makes it so that you can help the people around you grow even more. It's a surprisingly wholesome cycle. If you want to grow from all that competition though, then you're going to have to cultivate resilience too. You can't be the type of person who will stop before they've even started making progress because it was too hard or it was too much work. If you are, then you're just never going to go far. When you think of that guy, you think of someone who has their shit together. They're constantly improving and making strides in their life. They don't take losing personally, and they don't stop when things get difficult. So how do you do that? If you want to be resilient, there's one main change that you have to make in your life. You have to stop avoiding discomfort, and instead you have to start chasing it wherever possible. So many quips are thrown around about how you need to get out of your comfort zone, how you should like doing hard things. I think of the old quote that goes, easy choice is hard life, hard choice is easy life. But how often do you actually place yourself into these uncomfortable positions or situations? I say this because I've really dropped off in my own journey to chase discomfort. I used to do difficult, uncomfortable things just to prove to myself that I could, and at that time it felt like anything was possible. But eventually I just stopped chasing those experiences, and now I feel like I've come back to square one. That has to change. Not only is it important to say yes to the discomfort as it comes, but you should also actively be finding opportunities throughout the day to chase discomfort as well, to make it a habit. It can be the smallest thing, like choosing to turn the water cold instead of warm when brushing your teeth, or turning off the AC or heating in your house. Or it can be something bigger and more life-altering, like waking up at 5 a.m., signing up for a marathon, throwing yourself into a new social group, or whatever else might be giving you anxiety at the time. The point is to get yourself used to doing things that are difficult and realizing that you can get through them one step at a time. By making the hard choices and developing a strong will and discipline, life is just generally going to get easier. You'll start doing everything that you know you need to do without all the usual associated friction because you'll have just moved past that already. You'll never need to take the time to question whether or not you should be doing something, or to argue against that weaker part of your brain, which is always trying to rationalize why you should stop here and quit. You'll have trained that voice to be quiet because it will already know that you're going to do whatever it is that you set your mind to, and there's no getting in the way of that. Also, if you really want to be resilient, you have to work on embodying a growth mindset. You can't allow failures to set you back or give up because of frustration. This will naturally come up if you start chasing discomfort and doing more difficult things, but you have to push yourself to work through the failure. If you take failure personally, if you take it to be a statement of your identity, to say something about who you are as a person, then you internalize the idea that you can never change, that you're stuck at that level. You have to work through frustration and disappointment and show yourself that you're capable of learning from it. Be understanding with yourself. Progress takes time and you won't see the results immediately, but you have to stick through with it and trust in the process. Eventually, you'll be able to do the very same things that you didn't previously think you could because of all those failures. Finally, if you want that guy's mindset, you have to cultivate gratitude. Okay, honestly, most gratitude advice is trash. They'll tell you to take out your journal every morning and write about how grateful you are that you have food to eat or a roof over your head. Write about how grateful you are that you get to take a shower or sleep on a warm bed. I mean, yeah, that's all true. You should be grateful for all those things, obviously. But if you've never experienced not having those things, if you don't have a point of reference, then it's not going to resonate for you. This is why I know tons of people who have tried practicing gratitude in some form only to realize that it wasn't for them, including myself, until I found the one gratitude practice that actually worked for me and brought actual noticeable change to my life. So there's 2 steps. First, get a journal going at some regular time interval. I like to do it every night because I journal daily anyway, but for you it could be every couple of days, every week, whatever works. In that journal, I want you to go throughout your day chronologically and write down all of the good things that happened to you. Only write down the things that genuinely mean something to you. If you don't care about something, even if you feel like you should, that's fine. Don't write it down. Chances are that at first, you won't have all that much to write down. Maybe you'll think of a couple things every day. As time goes on though, you'll start to notice that you have more and more to write each day, until eventually you might end up even writing whole paragraphs on the things that happened to you throughout the day, and that's the cool part. Now this is a bit pseudoscience-y, but my reasoning for what's happening here is that you're building a habit of reflection at the end of every day where you're going back through your memories and specifically looking for the positive ones that you don't really think about. Once you do that consistently enough, you'll just subconsciously start going throughout your day looking for all the good things in the moment. It's like you are, through practice, priming your brain to have a better day every day. Every single day of your life is filled with so many good things that happen to you and kind gestures from the people around you, but we so often ignore them to instead focus on the negatives. You ignore all those good experiences, and as time goes on, you just start to forget them as well. What this journaling habit does is force you, at the end of every day, to reach in and pull those memories out. Memories of the good things that have happened to you, of the things that you do genuinely feel grateful for, and make them known to yourself so that you don't forget them. So the second step is even simpler. As you're writing about the things you're grateful for, chances are that at some point you're going to start writing things about the people in your life. Maybe someone did something nice for you, or maybe you were just happy to see an old friend. Tell them. Even if you don't really know the person all that well, that's fine. Do something with that gratitude. We so often have these kind of positive thoughts about people, but we hold ourselves back from saying them, maybe because we feel anxious or because we worry that it's going to be awkward. But think about how ridiculous that is. How would you feel if someone randomly came up to you and complimented you? Or told you that they really appreciated something that you did? I mean, that would probably make my whole day, and I'm sure that's true for most people. The awkwardness only exists in your head. It can be super chill. Just casually start spreading that positivity, and it'll come back to you in ways that you don't even expect. And it'll mean a lot for the people in your life too. Alright, so continuing in that vein, you can't be that guy unless you're being that guy for the people around you in your life. The very term that guy relies on other people socializing with you and coming away from that interaction thinking, damn, he's that guy. And that's why you have to build up your social and interpersonal skills too. Now, the first social skill that you need to build is empathy, emotional awareness. Your ability to relate with people, to understand them, to experience and understand your own emotions so that you can be emotionally available for others too. Imagine having it all. You're a healthy person, you have the right drive and attitude, you're accomplished, you've succeeded in everything you've ever wanted out of life, and you've filled your life with all these people. What will any of that mean if, when the people you care about need you to be there for them, you aren't really there? Or on the flip side, you can have everyone in the world by your side, but if you aren't understanding enough with yourself to be able to open up and rely on them, then you're as lonely as anyone else. If you want to be that guy, then you have to be comfortable and in touch with your emotions. So how do you do that? The easiest place to start is by exposing yourself to things that you know will bring up certain emotions within you, and then letting yourself feel those emotions fully. If you like to read some books that you know will make you feel a certain way. Or find new things to read with stories that'll really get you invested in them so that when things happen, you actually feel affected by them. A study conducted by the University of Toronto shows that reading fiction is actually a great way to build your empathy because it allows you to put yourself in the mind of another person and to relate to characters within the story. If that's not as much your thing, you can even watch movies or TV shows that you know will make you feel certain things. Even playing a story-driven video game will help with this. The important thing is that you allow yourself to experience stories that will make you feel emotions and that will help you to experience new things so that you have more to connect with people on. And when you do this, really let yourself feel those emotions. If you don't like crying around people, watch something that you know will make you cry, but then do it in private so that you don't have to hold yourself back. Watch things that make you feel happy, things that make you feel upset and frustrated. Listen to music and really focus on it, almost meditate on how it makes you feel. Allow yourself to experience the full range of your emotions, and it's going to be so much easier for you to start noticing those emotions in other people. The more comfortable and aware you are of your own emotions, the more comfortable and aware you'll be of the emotions of other people around you. Also, just generally try to expand your mind wherever possible. There's so much out there to life, and the more of life that you experience, the more you have to be able to pull from to relate to and connect with other people. This could mean saying yes if your friends invite you to something that you've never tried or that you normally aren't really into. It could mean trying new and different types of food, or maybe discovering different types of media or music that you don't normally consume. Whatever it is, just find ways that you can say yes to things in your daily life that you would normally say no to, and start to notice how that might expand your awareness of the world. If you're up for it, I'd also really recommend learning a new language. It'll open up a whole new avenue of experiences that were previously closed off to you, and force you to see and describe the world in a totally foreign way. Learning a language also, at least tangentially, will require you to learn about the culture that surrounds it. And that's something that will allow you to connect even more to the entire group of people who speak it. And at the very least, if you come across someone who speaks it, it's a great starting point for a conversation and getting to know them better. From there, you can build up your charisma, and to that end, I think that the best thing you can do is literally just to jump into the fire and forge yourself in the flames. I'll be honest, it's not easy, it's scary, it's uncomfortable, and if you have social anxiety, it can seem impossible. But the only path you can take if you want to get better is to put yourself out there and gain experience being around and talking with other people. There are just two concepts though that you need to keep in mind so that this makes you rather than breaks you. First, you need to realize that charisma is a real life video game skill with experience points, perks, the whole bit. And that means that you're going to fail. That's part of the process and you have to accept that. The second one is that you have to shift the focus from yourself to other people and what you can do for them, to provide value to them, to make them feel listened to make them feel good. As a person who used to have the aforementioned debilitating social awkwardness, I promise you that these will help. So let's dive into them a little deeper. So charisma is a real life video game skill. What does that mean? Think about what it means to level up a skill in basically any video game. It involves you repeatedly performing an action until you gain enough experience in that action to move on to the next level. Your social skills, and charisma in particular, works the same way. People will often avoid social situations out of fear of being awkward or messing up in some way, but that's counterproductive at best. Imagine you're playing Skyrim, a classic might I add, and you need to improve on your sneak skills so that you can build out your thief character. You're going to spend that entire game sneaking wherever you go so that you can rack up the experience points and level up as fast as possible. It doesn't matter if you fail or if you get caught. It's not like everything falls apart and you get reset back to level 1. In fact, sneaking unsuccessfully contributes to your experience the same amount as doing it successfully. It doesn't matter if you succeed or if you fail. If you want to level up in a skill, then you have to do that skill as much as possible so that you gain the experience points, and it works exactly the same with your social skills. Let's say that you decide to go and meet up with a group of people, and in the excitement of the moment, you end up trying to make a joke before really getting the vibe of the group first. It doesn't land. In fact, it goes horribly wrong. That interaction would have then been a failure that you might even cringe at for the rest of your life. But you know what? You won't make that same mistake again. So the next time you go and hang out with another group of people, you'll be on the lookout for that same mistake and others like it, and it'll go a little bit better. Then maybe make another mistake, and so then you're on the lookout for that one next time. One day things go well, things go great, and it boosts your confidence. Fast forward a bit, and the next thing you know, you're going out with people, you're hanging out, you're enjoying your time, and all these things that you were so nervous about before come to you naturally. The problem with social anxiety and social awkwardness is that avoiding gaining your social experience points out of a fear of failure will do nothing but keep you at level 0. I feel like everyone started out socially awkward at some point, but through trial and error over time, people learned from their mistakes and just started building up their social skills until things came more naturally to them. Then there are the rest of us who tasted that embarrassment, that awkwardness, and then just decided to give up. But it doesn't have to stay that way. It's difficult, but if you just throw yourself into the flames and force yourself to figure it out, your life will change. A really great way to do this, besides just saying yes if people invite you to things, is to go ahead and join some kind of group. You could take a class of some sort that meets regularly, pick up a new sport or hobby, maybe find some kind of community that you can join. Chances are that your school or workplace has something. Whatever it is, just throw yourself into a group of people and force yourself to figure it out. I've had a bunch of these throughout my life, the most recent ones being my jiu-jitsu gym for a little over a year, a weekly acting class I had taken for a little under a year, and a couple board game groups in my area I used to meet up with too. There are plenty of people out there for you to get to know, but you just have to take that first step. As for that second idea, you have to change the focus from yourself to what you can give to others in your interactions. Everyone's different, but one thing that I realized when I used to feel a lot of social anxiety was that most of my anxious thoughts were actually about myself. Will this person not like me if I say this? Will I embarrass myself if I show up to this thing? Will these people think I'm stupid if I say something right now? Everything was about me. That needed to change, and that doesn't mean that I needed to change myself or fix myself or do anything about myself. What I had to do was just stop focusing on myself. More specifically, the goal of every single one of my social interactions from that point became to make sure that the other person felt listened to and like I was genuinely interested in what they had to say. The crazy thing about this is that all of a sudden, just by making that change, people started liking me more. And I started getting this feeling that people actually wanted to be around me. Before that moment, I thought that my worth, my value to others revolved around my accomplishments, my status, and just being an interesting person. What all this made me realize is that none of that stuff actually matters. And that's something I feel like a lot of people in the general kind of self-improvement space need to hear. You've got to stop talking like a narcissist. If you want to be interesting, then you have to be interested. That doesn't mean just going around and interviewing people all day, but change your intention going into those social interactions and people will feel the difference. You'll feel the difference. So there you have it, a full guide on how to become that guy. The fact that you stayed through this long to the end of the video is sick, and I want you to know that these things have genuinely changed my life. And if you implement them, they'll genuinely change yours too. So do me a favor and actually commit to working on one of these things that I've mentioned here. Take that first step today. You can even comment down below if you think that'll help you. Just let this be the video that changes you. Get on the path right now and don't look back. Feel free to like the video so you can keep it as a reference for later. And I have a lot more on the way, so if you like this, feel free to subscribe and I'll see you in the next one.